Dry Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1879. The wind was already up before first light. It pushed against the empty town like it meant to carry it off, one board at a time. No snow had fallen yet, but the sky threatened it, low and swollen with a gray that bled into the land, made the buildings look like ghosts. That morning had no color. Mara Fletcher stood at the edge of the abandoned stable, one child strapped to her front, another to her back. Her third, Jonah, held her hand with fingers nearly blue from the cold. The baby had stopped crying hours ago, and that silence was worse than the wailing. It made Mara keep checking his cheek, watching for the faint breath on her collarbone. She whispered his name like a child, just to keep him. They had walked through the night, left the burnt minus-out cabin east of the Snake Ridge Trail with nothing but what she could carry and a prayer that someone in Dry Creek still had kindness left in them. But the town looked as hollow as she felt, windows empty, signs blown down, doors leaning off hinges. The store was shuttered, the chapel cross black with soot. Jonah coughed and pulled on her coat. "Where we going, Mama?" he said. His voice scratched like gravel, but he was trying to be brave. He always did. "We're looking for a place to get warm, honey." They had followed the river for hours, her boots soaking through at the toes, her thighs numb beneath the hem of her husband's old coat. She'd cinched it tight with a length of twine, but the cold found every seam. Her legs trembled, her lips cracked, but she walked. Nothing about the past few weeks had felt real. After the fire took Thomas, and what was left of the barn, she had done what she could to hold the children together. But the silence afterward, the kind that settles after a scream, had started to feel like death too. It haunted her. Dry Creek was their last hope. Mara lowered herself to sit on the edge of the old horse trough. Her knees gave a little, but she steadied the baby, held Jonah close. The little one whimpered against her chest, sucking uselessly at the collar of her shirt. "You'll eat soon," she said, though she didn't know if it was true. The baby's skin was pale, and his eyes half-minus closed. Jonah pressed close, leaning into her side like he used to when he was 3 and afraid of storms. He was 6 now, and already had seen too much. The last house on the row had a porch still standing, a rocking chair turned sideways against the wind. Mara squinted at it through the grit. There was no smoke from the chimney, no light behind the curtains, but the door looked whole. She stood, almost buckled again, then moved toward it. The steps creaked under her weight. She knocked, waited. Nothing. Knocked again. "I don't think nobody's home," Jonah said quietly. She tried the handle. It gave. The door moaned open on rusted hinges. Inside, it smelled like old flour and pine. Dust motes danced in a shaft of gray light from a crack in the shutters. There was a table, a stove. No food, no fire, but the walls would hold some warmth. She stepped inside. "Close it behind us," she told Jonah, who reached up with both hands to pull it shut. It clunked yet into place. The wind outside softened. The silence inside made her throat ache. She set the baby down on the floor, wrapped in her shawl, and rubbed his arms to get the blood moving again. He whimpered. Mara let herself cry for a moment, quiet behind her hand. There was a small cot by the window, and a rusted kettle on the stove. She touched the cold metal, imagining heat. She had need to find wood soon. Food too. But for now they could rest, just for a minute. As she sat with her children, rocking slightly to keep the chill off, she thought of the night Thomas died. How he'd run back into the flames for the rifle, why she didn't know. Maybe instinct, maybe pride. She had screamed after him. The fire had taken him in seconds. She never saw his face again. And now here they were in a stranger's house, half-minus alive, waiting on something that might never come. A floorboard creaked behind her. Mara turned fast, shielding her children with her arm. In the dim hallway stood a figure, tall, hat low over his brow, a rifle slung at his back, hands out, not yet speaking. Mara didn't move. The man looked tired, not cruel, but that didn't mean much out here. He took one step forward. "You squattin', or just survivin'?" he asked, his voice like gravel warmed by sun. Mara didn't answer. He nodded once, then pointed to the cold stove. "Let's get you a fire." The man didn't come closer right away. He moved slow, like someone used to spooking animals. He kept his hands where she could see them, but his eyes didn't drift. They stayed on her face, not her shape, not her children. Just her eyes, like he knew better than to scan a woman who clearly lost everything. He stepped to the side, knelt by the stove, and opened its blackened door. Mara didn't speak. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. The baby stirred in the shawl, coughed once to dry. Jonah clung to her sleeve. "You know this house?" she asked, voice hoarse from wind and silence. The man tossed her a glance over his shoulder. "Belonged to my uncle. He died last winter. I ain't much here, but the roof don't leak." He reached into his coat, pulled out a bundle of sticks and birch bark wrapped in old cloth, set it on the hearth. Then another bundle late whisk of jerky into tin cups. "You got a name?" he asked, not turning around. She hesitated. "Mara." He struck a match. "Sam." The fire caught easy. The birch bark flared up bright, then settled into a slow crackle. He fed it with kindling from a box she hadn't seen by the wall. Smoke funneled up into the flue. The air started to shift, warmed by flame and the smell of sap. "You bring food?" she asked, eyes on the jerky. "Some." He stood, dusted off his palms. "More if you come with me up the ridge later. Got a trap line there. Maybe squirrel. Maybe nothing. But I ain't got children to feed." "You do?" Mara nodded once, curt. Her body wanted to relax, but her mind hadn't caught up. She had met men who looked soft at first, only to turn sharp the moment they saw weakness. She wrapped her arm tighter around Jonah. "You don't have to be scared of me," Sam said after a beat. "I don't have the time not to be." He seemed to accept that. Jonah crept toward the fire. Mara let him go. He knelt beside it, palms out. The baby's eyes fluttered open. Mara bent low and loosened her blouse. Her milk had dried up 2 days back, but the child still searched for the comfort of her skin. "You from here?" Sam asked. Mara shook her head. "No. South of Riverton, near the canyons. My husband had land. Barely enough to graze goats, but he believed in it. He didn't ask what happened, just nodded like he knew. Maybe he did." Sam moved to the cupboard, pulled down a half-minus sack of oats and a dented tin of lard. "Can make mush if we boil some snow," he said. "I ain't fancy, but it'll fill a belly." Mara watched him closely. He moved like someone who'd lived alone too long, efficient, careful, not expecting help. He poured snow into a kettle, set it on the stove. His fingers trembled slightly when he unscrewed the tin. "Not from cold, from something else." "You live alone?" she asked. He paused, then said, "I do now." That was all. The kettle began to steam. The baby whimpered again, louder this time. Mara tried to soothe him with the edge of her scarf. Sam handed her a sliver of jerky. "Not much," he said, "but it'll give him something to suck on." She nodded, grateful despite herself. They sat like that for a long while, the fire crackling, the wind moaning against the boards. The room warmed enough to see their breath fade. Sam stayed near the wall, back resting against the doorframe, watching, but not staring, not threatening. Mara leaned her head back, eyes half-minus shut. Her bones ached from the long walk. Her ankles throbbed. "You can stay here," Sam said, not looking at her. "For now. Nobody'll come." "Why would you help us?" He looked at her then, long and quiet. "Because I saw a woman die in the snow last winter. She had the boys with her. By the time we found her, only one was still breathing." Mara didn't say anything. "You walked all night," he added. "That means something." The baby gave a tiny, dry hiccup. Jonah was already asleep on the floor beside the fire, curled like a pup. Mara stared into the flame. "Thank you," she said quietly. Sam nodded and stood. "He'll go check the traps before sundown. You'll be safe here." He walked out without another word, leaving the door shut tight behind him. Mara sat in the hush, feeling her children breathe, and for the first time in many days, let herself believe they might survive. Stories like this don't stop here. Subscribe now. The sun was sinking by the time Mara opened her eyes again. The light that filtered through the shutter slats was soft and orange, like a lantern behind warm cloth. Her neck ached from sleeping upright against the wall, but her body had warmed some, and both boys were still beside her, breathing, safe. She listened for sound movement outside. Wind, A voice, but there was only the faint creak of the house settling. No boots on the porch. No knock. Jonah stared, blinking at her. "Mama, I'm here." "Where did he go?" He said he'd be back. The boy nodded, lips chapped, eyes dull with tiredness. Still, he didn't cry. She hadn't seen him cry since Thomas died. He'd just grown quiet, a little older with every mile they walked. The baby whimpered in his sleep, cheeks ruddy now from the fire. Mara laid a hand against his back, steadying him. Then slowly she got to her feet. There wasn't much in the little cabin, some tools on a nail by the door, a broken broom, a square, cracked mirror above the wash basin. She went to the cupboard and found a jar of pickled beans and one of dried apples. The apples stuck to the glass in clumps, but they smelled clean. She pulled out a few and chewed slowly, her stomach quaking up with sharp pain at the first taste. Hunger returning was a kind of cruelty, but also a sign. Her body was still willing to fight. She gave Jonah a few slices and sat with him as he ate. His eyes flicked to the door every so often. "You think H.E.S. nice?" he asked. Murrah thought before answering. "I think he has done anything bad, and that's more than most." Jonah considered that. "He is kind does." She didn't reply. Outside, the wind had dropped. She stepped to the window and peeked out. The trees were still, the air thin, golden, quiet. High hawk drifted above the hills like a paper scrap, barely moving. She heard the crunch of snow. Her back stiffened. But it was only Sam, climbing the steps, rifle over one shoulder, a small hair dangling from the other hand. He knocked once before stepping inside. "Snow's crusted hard," he said, voice low. "Good for tracking, bad for hiding." He held up the rabbit. "It's not much, but I figured did he know how to stretch it?" "I do." He laid the animal on the table, then knelt to check the fire. Stoked it with a bit more pine. "You sleep any?" he asked. She nodded. He didn't say more. Just went to work skinning the rabbit, his hands moving with practiced ease. Blood pooled on the cutting board. The sound of the knife was soft but final. Mara watched him work. Noticed how he moved carefully, almost reverently, like he hated the necessity of it. She knew that feeling. He passed her the meat and took the bones aside, tossing them into a pot with some dried onion and snowmalt. She began to cook. As the stew simmered, Jonah sat up straighter, eyes brightened by the smell. The baby let out a real cry, weak but full of life. She gave him a bit of apple juice pressed from the slices, and he took it greedily. The scent of rabbit filled the cabin. Rich, earthy, simple. Sam poured water into the tin cups. He offered her one, then sat back against the door again. "I used to have a daughter," he said, sudden, not loud. Mara paused with the spoon in her hand. "Should have been 5 this winter." "What happened?" she asked. He rubbed his jaw. "Fever. Took her quick." He didn't say more. She served the stew, passed a bowl to Jonah, then one to Sam, kept the smallest for herself. They ate in silence, the crackle of the fire and the clink of spoons the only sound. After a while, Sam said, "Your husband, was he a good man?" Mara kept her eyes on her bowl. "He tried hard." Sam nodded like he understood. She looked at him then, his face caught in the firelight. There were deep lines around his eyes, not just from age but from squinting into the wind, into sun, into distance. The kind of face that forgot how to lie. "Why are you out here alone?" she asked. His shoulders lifted a little. "Because the world didn't ask me to be anything else." Dad sat in the room for a while, heavy, honest. Murrah nodded just once. Later, when the boys had drifted to sleep again, Sam moved a blanket over Jonah, careful not to wake him. His hands were rough, but the gesture was gentle. Mara watched, not speaking. He looked up at her. "You're strong," he said. She shook her head. "No, just scared." He gave a slow nod. "That too." They didn't talk after that, but something had shifted. Not trust, not yet, but something warmer than survival. Snow fell that night. Thick, slow flakes drifting down like ashes. By morning, the world outside had gone quiet again, as if wrapped in cotton. Sam was already up when Mara opened her eyes. Clearing a path with a shovel he must be dug out of the snowbank behind the house. His coat was patched at the elbow, boots crusted white. He moved steady, shoulders hunched, but not with age. Was burdened. She stoked the fire back to life and warmed what was left of the stew. The baby stirred, fussed, then settled again once she held him to her chest. Jonah sat up groggy, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "We're still here," he said, like he didn't believe it. "We are." Sam came in, brushing snow off his sleeves. "Storm's setting in," he said. "If we don't need to move, we shouldn't. Least not today." He pulled off his gloves, flexed red fingers. "You ever use a snare?" Mara nodded. "Thomas taught me. We lived on squirrel near all last winter." Sam glanced at the boy. "You feeling brave enough to come help me set a few?" Jonah looked to his mother. She raised her eyebrows just a little, and he stood. "Yes, sir." "Not sir," Sam said. "Just Sam." They bundled Jonah in one of the spare coats hanging by the door. Too big, sleeves dragging but warm. Sam handed him a short walking stick and opened the door. "Stay close," Mara said. "I will." The door shut behind them, and she was alone with the baby. She exhaled, the breath shaky. The silence in the room pressed in close, not unwelcome, but heavy. It gave her space to think, though thinking lost something she much trusted these days. She looked down at the little one, who was wide Mina's side now, chewing on a bit of cloth Shed tied around his hand. Still alive. Still warm. That was everything. The hours passed slow. She cleaned what she could, warmed water, and scrubbed out the pot with ashes and snow. Found an old tin whistle in the drawer, broken, but it brought a half-minus smile to her lips. Some child had once played here. Some mother had once stood in this same place, watching the same woods. By afternoon, the wind picked up. The trees groaned. Still no sign of Sam or Jonah. She started pacing, heart climbing into her throat. Just as she reached for her boots, the door creaked open. Jonah came in first, cheeks pink, a wide grin on his face. "Mama, I saw a fox track." Sam followed, stamping snow from his boots. "No fox caught, though," he said. "Just prints in wind." He looked tired, but there was a calm behind his eyes now, something looser in the lines of his mouth. "He did good," Sam said, nodding toward Jonah. "He always does." That night they sat around the fire again, bellies warm from rabbit stew. Jonah leaned against Sam's leg as he told some story about a bear that got into his uncle's smokehouse. Mara watched them. It should have scared her how quickly the boy had attached, how easily Sam folded into the shape of their quiet, broken life. But it didn't, not in that moment. After the children slept, Sam stayed by the fire, turning a tin cup in his hands. "You ever think about leaving this place?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "I think about getting out from under it." "I don't know if that's the same." He nodded. "I've got land," he said, "up past the ridge, near a creek that don't dry up in summer. Needs work. Always did. Been too long since someone kept it up proper." She looked at him. "You want help with it?" "No. I want to offer it. To you. If you want it." The words hit her harder than she expected. Not because of the offer, but because of the way he said it, like he didn't expect anything in return. She rubbed her palms together. "You don't know me," she said. "I know enough." The fire cracked. Shadows moved on the walls. "I'm not looking for a man," she said. He smiled, not unkind. "I'm not a skin you two." They didn't speak again that night. He laid out a blanket by the door and slept with his back to the room. Mara watched him a long while, the baby curled at her breast, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not love, not safety, just a soft, flickering sense that the worst might be over. The days fell into rhythm as hard days do. The snow thickened, and the woods grew quiet. Animals went deeper. The world slowed. But inside that small cabin, something else began to grow, low, steady, uncertain. Mara fixed the broken hinge on the cupboard. She taught Jonah how to wash clothes in snowmelt. Sam hunted, trapped, and showed Jonah how to tie a snare knot without catching his fingers. Even the baby, who hadn't cried much since the cold set in, started to fuss more. It was a sound Mara hadn't known she missed. There were moments between the three of them, four, if you counted the baby, when the silence was hollow. Sam had a way of speaking only when it was needed, and when he did, it was often with dry humor or something gentle. Once, when Jonah spilled water on the floor and slipped straight into a pile of kindling, Sam didn't scold. He just helped him up, said, "Well, now we know what not to do." And Mara, who hadn't laughed in weeks, let out a small breath of something close to it. Still, she watched herself, watched him too. She'd been helped before, and left, and betrayed. So every kindness, every gesture was weighed. Late one evening as they sat by the fire after supper, Sam ran a whetstone over his knife blade. The room was quiet except for the slow scrape. "Your hands," he said, not looking up. "You sew?" "I used to. Took him mending for extra coin. I've got a canvas start, torn down the middle. Thought maybe it could be patched into something. Bags maybe, or coverings." Mara nodded. "He'll look at it." He met her eyes then, held them a second longer than usual. That night she lay awake after everyone had gone quiet. The fire was low, just embers. She watched the shadows shift on the ceiling, the baby sleeping in the crook of her arm. She thought of Thomas, of how it had been with him at the start, full of plans, both of them young, too hopeful for what the land was willing to give. He'd been a good man, not always patient, sometimes proud in the wrong way, but he had worked hard, loved her, loved the children, died because he went back for something he thought they couldn't live without. But they had. The next morning she found Sam outside sharpening a pair of old axe heads near the woodpile. Frost clung to his beard, and the wind lifted the ends of his scarf. "I can help split today," she said, setting the baby in a shawl across her back. "You don't need to." "I didn't say I need to. I said I can." He gave her a small nod and handed her maul. "Your hands will ache come sundown." "They already do." She took her place beside the block, steadied the log, and struck. The wood split with a clean crack. It felt good, honest. She kept going, finding the rhythm of it: lift, drop, breathe. They worked in silence, side by side, steam rising from their breath, sweat at the collar. Jonah came out now and then to gather pieces into a stack against the house. Sam kept an eye on him, corrected his grip, showed him how to brace his feet. Patient. When the sun began to lower, Mara paused. Sam stood nearby, holding a tin cup. "You ever want to leave Wyoming?" he asked. She wiped her brow with her sleeve. "Where would I go?" He shrugged. "People talk about Denver, or Oregon, places where the land's softer. Soft land grows soft men." He looked at her with that slow grin she hadn't quite gotten used to yet. "Maybe, but I think you do fine anywhere." She turned back to the wood, but her hands still. "I don't know how to live without struggle. It's the only thing that's never left me." He didn't say anything, but she heard his boots crunch toward her, then stopped just short. "Struggle don't have to mean suffering," he said. "Sometimes it just means choosing to stay." The snow began to fall again that night, soft and steady. And inside that cabin, with its patched walls and tired floorboards, the choice to stay started to feel less like surrender and more like something else entirely. The thaw came early that year. Not warm, not generous, just a slow loosening of the land. The snow turned to crust, then slush. The wind shifted. The pine needles dripped. Ravens cawed louder, sharper, as if calling something forward from under the frost. With spring inching in, came the world again. Sam went down to the trading post one morning, for miles by foot. He returned with salt, dried corn, a new tin kettle, and word from town. "They're moving cattle through next month," he told Mara. "Big doctor from Montana. Some riders allow pass near here." Mara set the baby on the floor, let him crawl toward the light pooling near the doorway. "That's not good," she said. "It might not be bad." She didn't answer. "Folks talk," he went on. "Someone's heard about a woman, a widow with 3 kids, left alone up near Snake Ridge. Said she disappeared after her place burned. Some think she died, and some think I didn't." Sam nodded. "Which means someone could come looking." Mara didn't ask how he knew that, or how much he'd heard. She just sat with the weight of it. She had thought the land might hide them, that out here in the cold and the quiet, the past might stay where it belonged. But the world always has a way of catching up. Later that day, as they cleared the path to the creek, Sam caught her glancing toward the woods. More than once. "Who are you afraid of?" he asked. She stopped, looked down at her boots in the melting snow. "Thomas' brother." Sam was quiet. "He came after the funeral. Said Thomas owed him money. Said the land should go to him. When I refused, he waited until I was gone for supplies and burned the barn. I came back to fire and smoke. I tried to fight it. Couldn't save anything. "In the house?" He came back, this time drunk. Said I had no right, that I was just squatting on land that didn't belong to me. I locked the door, took the children through the root cellar. We left that night. Sam leaned on his shovel. His mouth was tight. "You think he'll come here?" "I don't know what he thinks I'm worth. But men like that, when they lose land or pride, they come for something else. Someone else." Sam nodded once, went back to digging, but his eyes swept the tree line more often after that, and he slept a little closer to the door. Days passed, brighter now. The snow melted back from the cabin steps. They planted a row of turnips in the soft soil near the edge of the woods. Sam showed Jonah how to press seed with the pad of his thumb. Not too deep. The boy took to it easily, laughed again, not just once but often. Mara watched them from the porch, the baby asleep in her lap. A soft wind lifted the hair from her shoulders. She closed her eyes and breathed. Peace, like anything real, was always temporary. It came that evening. They heard the horse before they saw it. One set of hooves. Fast. Sam had just come back with a snared pheasant, hung over one shoulder. He stiffened, set it down, stepped toward the door. "Get inside," he told her. Mara was already moving. The rider came through the trees at a hard pace. Dust in his wake, mud splattered up the flanks of his bay. He pulled the animal short at the clearing. Set toe, broad shoulders, dark hat, pistol at his side. Even from the window she knew. "Eli," she whispered. Sam stood in the doorway, rifle low, steady. The man swung down from his horse. "You Fletcher's woman." Sam didn't move. "Who's asking?" "Am his kin. Name's Eli. She ran off with my brother's land. You should turn around. I any talking to you." Ella's eyes shifted, searching. Mara stepped into the doorway behind Sam. "I don't have anything of yours," she said. He smirked. I ain't here for things. I'm here for what's sold. You left the place with stock still on it. That makes it mine by law." "There's no law out here but what we make," Sam said. Ella's eyes narrowed. "You the one keeping her now?" Sam didn't answer. Eli stepped forward, and Mara, without thinking, stepped past Sam. "She doesn't belong to anyone," she said. Her voice didn't shake, not even once. Eli stared. Something dark moved in his jaw. "You think this ends it?" he asked. "You think hiding behind some woodsman makes it right? I think you need to leave, before you make a choice you can't come back from." Sam's rifle was up now, level, steady. Ella's hand hovered near his pistol. Silence. Then the wind picked up. "Hey Huck!" cried somewhere high. Eli spat into the snow. "This ain't over," he said. But he turned, swung back onto the horse, and rode off. Mara stood still for a long time after the sound of hoofs faded. Sam lowered the rifle. "You all right?" She nodded, but her hands were clenched into fists. The past hadn't disappeared. It had just circled back. But this time she wasn't alone. That night the wind came hard against Shaw, tearing through the trees like it was hunting something. The baby cried off and on, and Jonah curled close to his mother, whispering that he was scared, even though his fingers clutched her shirt tight. Sam sat by the door with the rifle across his knees. He hadn't spoken much since Eli left. Hadn't needed to. Mara didn't sleep. Her thoughts chased each other like wolves' fears of what Eli might do, where he might go, what he might bring back. Come morning, Sam boiled water for coffee and handed her a tin cup. "We'll need to be ready," he said. She nodded. "He'll come back. Not with words next time." Sam's mouth was tight. "I got friends north, folks I trust. If we want, we can pack up. Be there by end of the week." Mara looked out the window where the trees were just beginning to green, soft tips of life reaching out from the long deadness of winter. "We just started planting," she said. "I know. I won't run again, Sam." He looked at her then. "Really look." "All right," he said. They worked the rest of the day with purpose. Sam reinforced the door, repaired the latch on the window. He showed Jonah how to spot a trail in the underbrush, how to read the bent grass and the angle of a footprint. Mara dug out the root cellar, cleared space, made shelves. At night she practiced aiming with Sam's second rifle, steadying her breath, learning the feel of the trigger. The baby teeth hadn't fussed, but even he seemed to sense something had changed. One evening after supper, Sam brought out a wooden box she hadn't seen before. Inside were letters, some bound, some loose maps, and a worn silver locket. He laid them on the table. "These were my wife's," he said quietly, "and my daughter's. Ma didn't move. She died in childbirth," he went on. "Took my little girl with her. I buried them on that hill yonder under the cedar. Thought maybe I'd follow them for a while. Didn't care much to eat or speak." He ran a finger over the edge of the locket. "But this winter, I heard a voice one morning. Was't real. Not in the way we mean. But it said to get up, start the fire. Someone might come." He looked at her now. "And then you did." Mara's throat felt thick. She reached out, not for the locket, but for his hand. Let her fingers rest there a moment. He didn't move away. I ain't a skin for anything," he said, voice rough. "But I'd like to build something. With you. For them." "I don't know what I can give," she whispered. "You gave me a reason to get out. Every day since." They sat in silence. Outside, the last snow melted under the trees, the earth waking. She didn't speak of love. Not yet. But she didn't let go of his hand either. The next morning Sam rode out alone. Said he needed to check the old trail near the ridge. See if Eli had doubled back. Mara watched him ride into the trees, the baby on her hip, Jonah beside her. She didn't feel fear like before, only a readiness. Like the edge of a storm you can finally see. By dusk, Sam hadn't returned. And when she saw the smoke rising far off toward the trail, black and thick and rising wrong, she knew something had begun, something she couldn't ignore. The smoke rose steady in the north sky, a hard black line against the paling dusk. Not a cook fire, not a chimney. This was burning. Mara stood still in the yard, baby pressed against her chest, Jonah holding tight to her skirt. She could smell it now, sharp, bitter, too much pine. Something wouldn't have gone up fast. And Sam washed back. She moved quick. Jonah watched her with wide eyes as she wrapped the baby snug, tied him close to her back. She grabbed the rifle, the satchel, and the flask. The knife went into her boot. "I need you to listen, Jonah. Do you remember the trail behind the smokehouse?" He nodded. "You take your brother and go to the Cedar Hill, where Sam showed us the graves. But Mama, you stay hidden, no matter what you hear. If I don't come by morning, you run to the river fork and wait for someone with a red scarf. You remember that?" He looked up at her, too young, too brave. "I remember." She bent low, kissed his forehead, then placed the baby in his arms. "Go." He turned, shoulders square like his father used to carry them, and disappeared into the woods. Mara set off toward the ridge. The ground sucked at her boots, half-minus thought and treacherous. She kept her eyes ahead, followed the smoke. Her breath came sharp, her legs already tired, but her mind moved clear. She found the trail Sam had taken, hoof rips, then scuffle marks. Blood in the mud, not fresh. A broken branch where someone had fallen, maybe pulled back up. And then, the clearing. The old Lee Midas 2 was gone. Burned to its frame, fire still snapping at the edges. Sam's horse was tied to a tree nearby, lathered and shaking. But there was no sign of Sam. She turned, rifle up, looking for someone. The voice behind her. "Eli." He stepped out from the trees, pistol in hand, coat dusted with ash. His eyes gleamed, wild and bitter. "You're a hard woman to kill by accident," he said. Mara didn't lower the rifle. "Where is he?" "Ain't she alive?" "For now." Her finger rested on the trigger, but he saw it. Raised his pistol slightly. "Don't," he warned. "Not unless you want to see how fast I shoot." She stood still. "What do you want, Eli?" "I want what's mine. The land. The tools. And I want you off it. There's nothing for you on that land." He smiled, thin and drawn. "There's you." Mara didn't flinch. "I'm not a thing to be taken." "Maybe not. But you ran from me. That's enough." Her heart pounded. Every word she spoke came like a stone thrown downhill, gaining weight. "You burned your brother's home," she said. "You stood over his grave and spat." He stepped closer. "I never spat," he said. "I just didn't cry. Man like him, wasting it all on pride and poor dirt, should have sold to me years ago. You think you're owed something because you survived him? I think you should have known better than to steal what belonged to blood. I belong to no one." He raised the pistol, and then a voice behind him said, "You'd best drop that." Sam, bruised, blood on his temple but standing. He held the second rifle low and steady. Eli turned slow, too slow. Mara didn't hesitate. She fired. The sound cracked through the trees, sent the birds scattering from the branches. Eli dropped, not with drama, just folded forward like a sack torn at the seams. The pistol hit the mud beside him. Sam didn't move. Neither did she. For a long time, the only sound was the fire dying behind them. Then Sam exhaled, staggered forward. "You all right?" she asked. "I've had worse." She lowered the rifle, finally. Her arms ached. Her breath shook. They didn't look at the body. Not yet. Instead, she reached for his hand. His fingers found hers. The fire crackled. The wind sighed through the trees. And together, they walked back down the trail toward the hill, where two boys waited, where spring was trying its best to come. The earth had thawed enough to dig by mid-morning. Sam took the shovel without asking, and Mara didn't stop him. She stood back, arms crossed, watching the shadows stretch across the ground near the cedar hill. Jonah sat a little ways off with the baby on his lap, whispering something soft to keep him calm. The boy looked older today, like he understood what had happened even if he couldn't name it. The grave was shallow. They didn't say a prayer, didn't mark it. "You want to speak?" Sam asked, resting on the shovel. Mara shook her head. "Some men don't leave words behind worth remembering." He nodded once, then filled in the dirt. When it was done, he set a flat stone on top, not out of honor, but to keep the animals away. They walked back slow. The cabin came into view through the trees, quiet, familiar now. Smoke rose from the chimney. A buckboard wagon sat near the clearing. Supplies, tools, a new seed sack tied with cord. They ate together on the porch, baby tucked between them, Jonah sitting on the step, legs swinging. Afterward, Sam reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small box. "I don't have much," he said. "No ring." "Not yet." Mara looked at him. "But I'd like to ask anyway." She didn't answer right away, just watched him, the lines in his face, the steadiness in his eyes. "You're not saving me," she said. "I know. I can't promise anything soft. I don't want soft. I want real." She looked down at the boy leaning against her leg, the baby asleep at her shoulder, the land beyond the trees, hardened endless and still theirs to shape. Then she took the box, opened it. Inside was a simple circle of leather, braided tight, worn at the edges. His daughter's maybe, or something older. A symbol. She held it a moment, then nodded once. Yes, they were married under the cedar tree a week later. Just the four of them. No preacher, no guests. The baby wore a wool cap, and Jonah held a sprig of new blue made Chidi found near the creek. Sam said a few words. Mara said fewer. But when they kissed, it was real. A life beginning again, not because it was easy, but because it was earned. By summer, the turnips came up strong. The roof stopped leaking. Sam built a cradle. Mara fixed the window panes and taught Jonah his letters. The baby took his first step between them on a warm morning, chasing light across the floorboards. And one evening, Mara stepped outside alone, stood on the porch, and looked at the lamb before her. Wide, scarred, beautiful. The wind brushed her cheeks, soft this time. The sky was deep blue, stars just beginning to show. Behind her, the sound of laughter, Jonah giggling, the baby squealing, Sam saying something low and steady. She closed her eyes, stayed there a moment, and smiled. Subscribe and follow the long road west.